So far today, the strategy has delivered 4 losses. Um, I've taken 2 wins, so I'm negative 2R. There have been, during the morning session, there were 2 that I didn't take that were winners. Also, during the lunch hour, I took those 2 winners I just spoke about, but the last one that I didn't take is right here. I have it marked up. I'll just show the strategy quickly. So what we're looking for is the sweep of a high, which you see this purple line, you see it traded through. Then we need a sweep of a low. Let me get rid of this. The low was formed here, and then afterwards it collapsed down, sweeping that low. Then we look for a new high to be made, which we saw. Once that new high is made, Fibonacci, 30%. We set up our long to enter at 30%. We, excuse me, we have a 5-point stop loss, 5.25 take profit to take care of any type of fees and commission. And then we just let it happen. Price broke down, triggered our entry at the 30% retracement, which was 16,040.25. And then we're just looking for 5.25, and we saw that 3 candles later it delivered. And so in a nutshell, that's essentially what we're doing. We're trading with the trend. We're looking for a sweep of the opposite direction. We're looking for a new extreme to be made with the trend. And then we're looking for a 30% retracement. 5-point stop loss, 5.25 take profit. Let me clean up our screen so we can look for the next setup. The one thing we want to be aware of this afternoon is we have Powell speaking in an hour. He spoke earlier this morning, and he's going to speak again in an hour. So we should be aware of when we get close to that time frame, the price may be a little volatile, and we probably don't want to be into it in a trade right at 1 o'clock. I'm sorry, not right at 2 o'clock. We want to wait for maybe 20 to 30 minutes before entering the trade. Let price settle, let price action deliver what it wants to in that first half hour. A lot of times it's going to be a Judas swing just to trip people up or to take liquidity. And so we just want to wait and stay out of all that. Readjust 5-minute down in the lower corner. So I took these entries off of the 15-second. Let me move over to the 30-second. Typically, I want to enter on 30-second time frame. So let's just see if these same trades set themselves up. We still had a sweep of a low. So we had the high taken, the same manipulation leg. So this trade would have worked on the 15 and 30-second. This was a setup that I saw, but as you can see, price never retraced back to it. Here's an execution I took during the lunch hour. It was based off of this manipulation here. We had a sweep of a low on 15-second here. Then we had a new high made. In fact, let me go to the 15-second so you can see that. Okay, this was the low that was swept. Then we had a high swept here. And then it took a while. It made new highs, and it came all the way back down, tapped in for our 30% by 2 ticks, it looks like, and then went straight to profit. Even though I saw this setup here, I didn't take it. Glad I didn't, because the price wanted to move further south and go into this entry. But as you can see, once price delivered out of this entry, it went back up, nearing these highs, retraced back down, triggering, let me show that, triggering what would have been an entry here, 5 point. So you can see it never touched the 5 points on the retracement. Let's see, it delivered the 5 points in a quarter. Came in, delivered. 3 candles later, it was out of the zone, delivered TP. Okay, now we're back live. In fact, this entry here at 12:53, we can see this delivered 2 times. I never like to take the same setup multiple times, but price will sometimes deliver multiple times. As you can see, trailed in, delivered out, came back in, tapped the entry, delivered out again. Okay, this lime green area, I mentioned in the earlier session, this is our new week open gap. So price is where it opened on Sunday evening. Um, Mostly moved up this week, but for the most part, it hasn't really done a lot. Hence, it being in the same zone here Friday afternoon after an entire week of movement. On the weekly candle, we essentially have a doji. So it looks like Powell's speech is going to deliver whatever the weekly candle was expected to deliver this week. We did get a new high, which I'm assuming was the directive for the weekly candle. So I'm not sure what we're going to get this afternoon, but we will wait and see. On the higher time frame, I do want to mention, because we continue to see price stall in this area and it's still doing a lot of consolidation. Looking at the daily candles, the daily chart, this is the 10th day. Actually, since about November 15th, we've been sitting in this range. Price has either wicked or dropped the candle body into this 200-point zone for the last 12 trading days. 2 days were below, but the other 10 days either wicked in or had a candle body in. So since November 15th, we really hadn't moved out of the zone. It's just been up and down, taking out highs, taking out lows, making everyone liquidity, which is why you may have noticed that other traders are showing some frustration the last couple of weeks. And it's because price really just has stalled when the month before we had about 30 days or 20 trading days of trending. So you could take a position, watch it develop into something that was worthy of a profit, and then exit the trade. Price action was much easier to see then versus now when it's doing a lot of consolidation. We are in the first day of a new month, so price is going to want to tip his hand a little bit. But if you really think about it on the way, the power of three, the first leg of the power of 3 is generally manipulation. Take the back, it's generally accumulation. Then we get manipulation, and then we get distribution. So a lot of what we find now in this consolidation is just that accumulation, developing orders, both longs and shorts, and then eventually it's going to move out of the zone. Okay, here's a trade I didn't take, but it looks like the bearish price action just delivered. There we go. These look too close, so I'm not sure if this would have tapped you in or not, but we did have an entry on these 3 candles, and then we had an exit out of the zone here. I'll go ahead and show you what that setup looked like. We had our high swept here, and we were just looking for a new low to be put in, which happened on this candle. Once the new low was put in, then we could set up our Fibonacci, set up our trade, and just wait for it to re-enter. What happened is it broke down even further, made a newer low, but then started the retracement back up into where we wanted the trade to enter. which was here. So you got the entry there. Take profit was delivered at 113. So now we look for the next setup. We're looking for a high to be swept and a new low to be made. In fact, if we look in our last area, once this low was made, let's move this out of the way. Come back to that later. Okay. We had a high swept here. And then we needed a new low there. There's our manipulation leg. And now we wait for the next setup to see if this one's going to be triggered. If we get a new low, then we'll scrap this limit and then we'll look for another one. Okay. Look at equal lows. That can go either way, whether you consider that a new low or not. Okay. We now have our high taken. Now we're looking for another low. Let's clean up our charts a bit. Equal highs here, but this high was swept. This one. Okay. Even the higher ones swept as well. Okay, tap us in. Let's see what the trade delivers. Okay, another winner. Okay, we're getting close to break even on the trades we took, and then there were 3 trades we didn't take that were all winners. The winner we just took, remember, for anyone looking for that setup was sweep of this high. Well, first we had this low taken, wick down, sweep of this high, and then we had a new low created. over here, down. So now the manipulation was from this down wick all the way to the extreme point, swing high. We had a little consolidation downward, built this way back up, wicked us in, passing the 30% retracement, and then broke down to give us 5 points. Where we currently sit, we had a sweep of a high already, which was, oddly enough, the entry in our previous setup over here. So it swept this high, noted by the purple line here, that was swept. Now, once we make new lows, we'll look for a very similar setup here. Okay, so I just noticed after price tags in and delivered 5 handles, came back and tagged us in a second time. You'll see on this candle, tagged us in and delivered another 5 points. Again, I like to take each setup only one time, but if you miss it, it's possible to still collect a winner when they revisited the area. We're back in the area now for a third time. And just looking at price action, this is why I don't like to re-enter a second or third time after price is already delivered. Because this trade, in fact, you'll see this would have been a loser. See? There he is. Right out. For anyone who was interested in the 50% entrance, you'd still be in a trade, although you'd be in drawdown right now. Let's just watch and see how that develops. So anyone entering at 50% would have had price deliver. You're gonna hold off taking any more entries in this area. Just wait and let price move out. I think it's now too much going on in this area to where it's easy to get wigged out based on our tight stop loss of 5 handles. And so now it's more of a wait and see where price wants to go next. Been on the 15-second this entire session. Let me switch back over to the 30. Okay, new low created. Now we look to see what was our manipulation. Let's shift this up to 50%. Not feeling overly confident about this one. And mainly it's because the manipulation leg was, it started out down here, it went up, came back down, and it made a new high. And because of that, I'm expecting a deeper retracement, so I don't want to enter 30%. And as I said, I really didn't like this area anyway because of how many trades have already happened here. So I'm not very confident in this zone to deliver. Again, the lime green area here is a new week open. The gap created at 6 p.m. on Sunday. So we are right back where we started the week. course, new week opening gap is a highly confluent area, so this may turn into a barrier or a resistance for price to return up and give us an entry at 16,022 and a half. For that reason, this actually may stay open. If we drop another 5 to 10 points down, I'll cancel this limit anyway. Um, Not that it's not a valid entry, but we'll just be a little too far away for me to rely on this entry. I might as well look for a new setup since this is a short time frame. Might as well look for a new setup down here. So let's go down to the 15-second. Okay, we don't have any highs taken until just now. Right now we have a high taken. 30-second. Nope. Okay, let's see if we get a low taken here. Then we'll have a manipulation of this. Okay, so not a 15-second entry just yet. Let's go back to the 30-second. Okay, we're approaching what would have been a 30% retracement on the previous setup. I have my entry set up to enter at the 50% retracement, but 30% is minimum to enter a trade for this type of strategy. Okay, we did have a break of this high. So we can enter this trade off of the 30-second or the 15-second. I want to point out this high was also broken. Okay. Move up 50% on this one as well, just because of the time as well as how hard it was to make this sort of manipulation leg. We had the swing high created, almost full retracement, and then a new high created. So if we get a shallow retracement into 30% and then another breakdown, I'll miss out on this entry, but it's fine. Okay, now that we've broken down, I'm going to cancel this limit. We're most likely not going to move back up here, and if we do, I'm not going to be confident that it's going to come up and then break back down. We also have Powell coming on in 20 minutes, so again, being careful and understanding that that could cause volatility. Be careful if price decides it wants to move back up into this area where we have the trade set up. If it taps into this 30% retracement and then delivers the 5 points, we then want to make sure that we cancel our order. Because if it does come back up and retrace into the 50% zone, we don't want to take that as another trade in the same area. It may deliver, but I haven't tested that enough to be confident that it's going to deliver. If we get a break of this low, I'll cancel the previous limit order. Okay. We have a sweep of the high. In just a moment, we'll get the 150 macro setting up the 2 o'clock hour. So we should see some price movement in the next minute or two. Either take out this low that's just below where we are now, or take out the high. If it takes out the high, that'll trigger our trade. If it takes out the low, it may set up the next trade. Okay, 151. Again, same thing we saw earlier today. Keep getting rising lows and declining highs. This next candle or two has to do something, can't stay the same size. Okay, highs broken first. There we go. So that would have tapped us in if we had a 30% retracement entry. Let's see now if it delivers 5 points. And it did. There was the 5 points right there. We cancel our entry. There we go. So for morning session, 30% retracement was not a good entry. It stopped me out 3-4 times in a row. And since 12 o'clock now, and we're approaching 2 o'clock, there's been 5 or 6 wins in a row with a 30% entry, 30% retracement entry. So, really the learning there is several losses in a row. Don't let it destroy your confidence. Maybe end your session or stop trading for the day. But believe in your method, believe in your strategy, and just come back in another session and try it again. Welcome. What's up? Good to have you join the channel. Yeah, this is a scalping setup, a 30-second scalping setup for Nasdaq futures. There was a trade that just occurred. I don't know if you were in this channel or not, so let me show you how it unfolded. Also review my strategies just so you understand. Okay, so what we had was we had bearish momentum. So what we wanted to see, first we want to see a new low put in, which it kept putting in new lows coming down. But as it's making new lows, we're really not triggered until we get high broken. And we got a high broken here. Oh, sorry about that, man. It's just my voice. It's always been that way. No, I don't trade Forex. I only do indice futures. I'm only doing indice futures. But this strategy works on Forex as well. So if you want to use it, you usually will get 4 to 5 entries per hour. But let me just finish my strategy explanation. So we had a high taken here. Then after that, we want to see a continuation in the move of momentum. So momentum was downward. So we want to see a low taken. We had that down. From there, we want to see a 30% retracement back into the zone to take a short. So we set up our Fibonacci for this movement up, which we consider a manipulation. Price traded down and it did a lot of consolidation down here, but we were waiting for it to come back at 30% to enter a trade. This would have been the setup. So as you can see, price came up and it triggered an entry right at 30%. And from there, it traded down 5 points, which is $100. So we do a 5-point stop loss, 5-point take profit. So this was $100 per contract trade. And let me clean up our charts a bit. Yeah, most of my trading, I started probably the same way a lot of people start, through IML or those kind of companies that try to put a lot of systems in place where you don't really need to know how to trade. It just gives you entries and you're supposed to jump in. I didn't like that approach because I didn't know why I was supposed to enter whenever the system told me to enter. And I definitely didn't know how to exit a trade. So I ended up holding on to winners too long where they came back on me, or I didn't know why I was entering. And when the loser was moving in the opposite direction, I didn't have a clear grasp of whether it was going to turn around quickly or whether it was just gone in the opposite direction. From there, I found ICT, and ICT started explaining why certain things were happening or why the candles printed the way they printed. And that spoke to me because I'm a why person. I always want to know why things are happening. However, that's a very, very difficult, I'm telling you, it's a difficult concept. And he has a lot of information. I spent almost 2 years religiously listening and watching everything he participated in, everything he delivered. Um, and I still trade his concepts. It's just here I'm in a combine trying to pass my combine top step, and I want to use this scalping strategy because the results are much quicker, which is easier for my psychology. I don't have to hold a trade for an hour or two, look and see what it's going to deliver. I'm only scalping, looking for 5 points at a time. So I can get 3 or 4 trades in 1 to 2 hours and be done trading for the day. Yeah, I'm gonna try to do live streams. I'm gonna try to do them in the morning every day, starting around 10 o'clock. I might move to 11 o'clock if results continue the way they've been. Plus, it's just a lot of news is happening at 10, so it's tough to trade that first half hour. So I may do it like 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock. But this afternoon session also works. So I like the 1 to 3 p.m. as well. Um, but I mean, you're in a great situation to be just now getting out of high school and learning trading. I'm 43 years old, so I didn't find trading until I was 40. I wish I found trading at 18 because of where I would be now. Although if I found trading at 18, technology was completely different back in 2000. So I probably would have struggled or been very frustrated. All right. Thank you, Hamad. Thanks for joining. By the way, Hamad, where are you joining from? All righty, 2 o'clock. Powell is speaking now. Now we wait and see what's the reaction to Powell's speech. While this happens, I need to grab a drink of water. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Mine, hmm. Good boy. Hmm. Okay. So far, price action hasn't shown his hand. Essentially trading between these 2 points. Based on what we see and what we had prior to 2 o'clock hour. We had a lot of bearish momentum. If we sweep these lows, then we can use this sweep of the high as our first condition. Sweep of the low is our final condition. And then we can just be looking for a retracement to 30%. Let me just see. Audio check. Testing 1, 2. Can you hear me? Excellent. Glad it works. I'll try to play around with some of the audio filters on OBS today and just, I have a really deep voice. I had someone mention that I sound like AI. But maybe there's something I can do to change it a little bit just so it's not so muddy and rugged. Okay. Not going to take this long before 12:30. I'm sorry, not 12:30, 2:30. Going to wait until 2:30 before taking any entry, but I do want to set this up as the way the strategy works and what the entry would have been. If price doesn't re-enter the zone until after 12:30, then I will take this setup. Keep saying 12:30. I'm in Arizona. It's 12:30 in Arizona, but I'm speaking in terms of New York. So 2:30 is the time I'm waiting for to take an entry. Okay. Another high. Then we hit a sweep of a low. Let me just show you what that's like. So we swept a high. And we swept a low. Now if a new high is made, this becomes the setup area as opposed to this one, which is denoted here. You're getting close. Alrighty. This would be our manipulation. Okay. I would rather see it, instead of making equal highs, I'd rather see it at least go one tick above. Close above is even better. All right, there we go. There we have a tap in. Again, we're not taking the setup because it's not 12, it's not 2:30 yet. So we're still waiting until 30 minutes after the red folder. But this is the setup. This would have been the entry. Do not like fast moving candles like that. Usually that's the quickest way to see a losing entry, but it's what it is. Let's see what happens. All right. That would not have been a winner. Going down to the next one. The previous one we had set up and we were waiting for. But remember, we're waiting until 2:30. But tap in right there. Makes it easier to see. Almost. One more tick. Okay, so that would have been winner. Now let's see if it makes its way north of that swing high to then deliver on the second setup. This out of the way. This is already delivered. Now would be a situation where you take a discounted entry as it re-entered the zone. You could have at 50% joined and said, I like this for the move up. You could have joined at 70% with a low risk entry. Or you can wait for it to retrace back down now and see if it delivers. Okay, looks like we have equal highs. There would have been delivery on that if you had taken a second entry. So that could have been a 2 wins, 1 loss situation for this area. 1 win, 1 loss here, and then 1 win down here when it tapped in and then broke out. Okay. You can say in the short term, we're looking for bullish setups. 5 minutes away from 2:30, so we're still waiting. We're still watching. Now, if we go back and we just look at the setup that we are anticipating, we had a new high put in here. Then we had a low swept. And then we had that high broken. So now, this is what the manipulation looks like. Wick to wick. That same new week opening gap we were talking about, the lime green area. So now we'll come down and just go in just a hair, maybe 1.34 ticks, and then we're hoping it comes out. And that would be a long setup. For anyone listening out there, you want to put in where you're from and how long you've been trading in the chat. Appreciate that. Oh, one tick away, didn't tap in. For anyone who just joined, this is again a 30-second scalping model on 30-second chart. What we're looking for is to find the trend in the market. After the last market structure shift, we're looking for the opposite direction, liquidity to be swept. Then we're looking for continuation. Once we get to continuation, 30% retracement into the manipulation that just occurred, the liquidity sweep in the opposite direction I just mentioned, that's the manipulation. So 30% retracement into that leg. And then we're looking for a continuation for 5 handles, 5 points. Again, we're looking at Nasdaq futures, so it's every point is divided into 4 ticks. Each tick is worth $5, so $20 per point or handle. And these trades are set up as a 1-to-1 risk reward, 5 point stop loss, 5 point take profit. We add a quarter on the take profit, so 5.25, so 1 extra tick to cover the commission fees, which is, I believe, $2.50 per round trip, so entry and exit. Okay, so we had an entry into the 30-second. So we would have been in a trade, and as you can see, it delivered the same candle. I wasn't even paying attention. I was focused on talking, but it tapped in, delivered, and now it looks like it's going for those highs. Let's clean up the chart a bit. But yeah, it was a little touch and go earlier this morning. The strategy really took 4 losses in a row. But since then, there were 2 wins I didn't take that I saw. I showed them on live stream this morning. And over lunch, there were 2 trades I did take and won those. And then since 1 o'clock, there's been another 3 winners. So quite a winning streak now after this morning's session. Move this off to the side. Okay. Again, we have a high. Okay, it's 2:30. We're back in the game. We have a low swept. Now, once we get a new high, we'll be looking for an entry. That high swept, this will be our manipulation. If it only wants half of this wick. get a movement upwards. Equal highs should be a target of price action. See these equal high swept, and then maybe an ultimate swing high taken. Really make another equal highs. Now it's 5 of them. There we go. The equal highs are gone now. Let's see if it can take that the swing high. Because if it does, we'll then look for the retracement into the 30%, and then a long entry. We'll say I'm not really encouraged by all the wicks, the upward wicks, this area. Pushing up towards lunchtime highs. Alrighty, maybe this is what we needed. Okay, those highs are gone. Let's look for this one, the purple line. All right, there we go. We now have a long setup in play. The last candle can be a little tricky. 10, 11 points for one candle. I thought it could actually do that, where you can get equal momentum coming back the other way, as you see. But it's okay. We take every setup. Most are winners, but no one's 100%. Even if you if you thought you had the perfect strategy, no strategy is 100%. So we take them according to our rules, and we let whatever happens happen. And we make decisions from there. Like this morning, 3 or 4 losses in a row. And then, okay, let's stop for this session. We can continue to watch it, but no more trades to take. Started taking trades during the lunch hour. Came out with a couple winners. Decided to move into the afternoon session, knowing that Powell was coming on at 2 o'clock. But you just got to be careful and navigate your way around that. All right, it delivered. All right, that's 3 entries in a row as winners. We're now at break even from the entries we took and the entries we didn't take. There was 1 loss and I believe 3 winners of entries we didn't take, either during the 2 to 2:30 while we were letting the market react to Powell's speech, or during the lunch hour when there were a couple setups I didn't take. But hopefully you can see that the strategy does work, and also you can see what the strategy is, how to implement it. Now we have a new swing high. So as soon as we get a low swept, we'll be looking for another entry. And this is why I say you can get entries 3, 4 times in an hour. As you can see over here, we had, when it retraced down, it fell into the 30% and delivered. So this setup delivered. And you have this setup, made a high, retraced down, triggered the 30%. It delivered. We had a new high above this purple line, a new high. It retraced down, triggered the 30%, and it delivered. So that's 3 in a row from 220, until 238, 240. So in 20 minutes, there was 3 winners. And this is why I don't take setups a second time after they've delivered. Because as you can see, it would have came down, triggered you in, and stopped you out. For shits and giggles, let's move down to 50%. Just in case someone likes that setup better. That too would not have delivered. So take a setup once and then move on and wait for a second one. I'll be right back. Give me 2 minutes. All right, I'm back. Let's see what we have. Okay, we see a handful of lows taken. Clean up our charts a bit. All right, let's see if price wants to make a new low. If it does make a new low, then potentially we have a bearish setup. However, I do not like the fact that it moved all the way through the new week opening gap. It didn't close inside and moved out. That would signal that we're most likely still bullish. What we want to do now is park that bearish sentiment for just a moment. Let's sit back and see if it's actually going to turn back bullish. Okay, it's now 2:50, so we have a macro that's going to run for 10 to 20 minutes, setting up the last hour of the day. Maybe why we had a sweep of lows from here as well as sweep from these lows. Right, we had that one swept as well as this one. Maybe just to grab a bit of liquidity before continuing upwards. We're now looking for a low sweep. If it's going to be bullish, we're looking for a low sweep. I wouldn't consider this the low sweep, although this may deliver. Who knows? Um, if you consider this the high, this would be the low sweep, and then high swept here, retracement to 30% to deliver. I wouldn't I wouldn't take that trade, which is why I'm not in that trade. I'm sorry, which is why I'm not in that trade. Because first, I want this high to be broken as the beginning of trade. So that's here. Sorry, the beginning of the setup. Now we need a low to be taken. And so far, each candle has delivered a new low, not a swing low. So we need a swing low to be taken. Let's move over to the 15-second. Bingo there. And then we had a swing low taken on the 15-second. Now, if we get a new high, the 15-second could give us an entry. Which then means manipulation will be here. So if anyone did use that previous setup, more aggressive one, it most likely looks like it's going to produce. It's getting close. But yeah, until I get a sweep of this high. I'm not looking to enter into a long. What you could do if you were in a trade is once price move past this swing high here, take your stop loss from down and move it up to this swing low. Therefore, if price reverses on you, you don't lose full 5 points. Maybe you'll lose 4. And remember that trade was entered from here. Right, so this move in the stop loss has already minimized the risk by 1.5 points. So now you're looking at a 3.5 point stop loss instead of 5. And there was the delivery. So that trade would have delivered even by moving the stop up. It wouldn't have stopped you out, but it did deliver. Now I'm interested in this trade. Oh, it's already, it would have already entered me, and I was too slow. And this is what happens when you're on the short time frame. Is sometimes it'll tag you in, you're not ready. You can see it tagged everyone who was ready in. Okay, someone new just joined in. Can you type in the chat how long you've been trading and where you're from? There we go. That would have delivered as well. I was too slow. I couldn't get in. And so now got to remove my limit order. I don't want to test it a second time. Okay, let's move this over. Let's look for another setup. Since we're bullish, we can't find another setup until we have a low swept. So we just wait until we have a low taken, and then we look and see what price action looks like. But regardless of how many highs are made, without a sweep of low, we don't have an entry. Okay. On a bigger scale, you can see we had a sweep of this low down. Now we're approaching sweeping this high. That could potentially be our next setup, even though it's a large range. See if I can be a little quicker this time. Actually, since the range is larger, it'll take a bit more time to come down anyway. But still, just want to be in position. 2 minutes before the hour. We continue to get a push away from where we are now. I'll cancel the order. It'll be too far away. On the 5 minute, we have a bearish fair value gap, which may provide resistance and also maybe where price is pushing into. That's about 7 points away. Ultimately, the high of 16,050, the lunchtime high, also maybe where price is pushing to. So we'll look at that. All right, welcome to Power Hour, 3 o'clock. Okay, I'm going to now cancel the limit order. I canceled the limit order, but I can always put it back on if price retraces back down into this area. We still have, looks like a fair value gap was just created here. We also have a fair value gap created down here. Let's do an in-between entry of about 40% retracement. Instead of looking for it to get all the way down to 50, let's not necessarily jump in at 30. The fair value gap I just drew up, it went to the very lower extreme and then bought straight out. Let's see if that's an area of resistance or if we can break through. We could also have another entry set up if we break this high. because we had this low broken on the way down. The new high would then give us a new long entry. We go back in with the fair value gap just so we're aware of where it is. Okay. I think we can safely remove the fair value gap now. Let's put up the other one. Remember, this was our original entry, whereas, sorry, it was the original setup. We didn't take the entry. 30% was here. And we said, no, I decided let's go with 40 instead of 30. Let's see how that works out. 30 would have lost, 40 would have lost. 50 would still be in the trade. But now we're below this fair value gap. Maybe this fair value gap will be resistance now. See, even 50 would have been a loser. Wow. There we have it, the 250 to 310 macro. We were down here just before at 250. It went, took out these highs, and swept the lows. So regardless, if you played a tight stop loss, if you thought we were short and you put your stop here, it ran that out. If you thought we were long and you put your stop here, it just ran that out too. And now the question is, are we switching to bearish momentum, bearish sentiment? We have taken out several lows. This was a key low for this high. For this high was created from this low. That low has now been taken. So now the question is, will we return to reclaim this high, or will we make a short-term high and then break down? Okay, the same fair value gap that provided resistance on this candle, still there. Let's see what happens. We already got a rejection on the last candle. Let's see if this candle can break through it and close above. And if we do get a return to these highs, then all we had was a liquidity sweep of lows to make sure that on the way up, there were fewer traders in profit. And if we look down to the lower left, if you look at the 5-minute, earlier, I was concerned about the wicks above us, which is why I didn't want to take longs until a new high had been made. Look at all these wicks below. Oops. Hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It went away for 2 and came back. So about the last 40, 45 minutes, it's just been putting down wicks and moving upwards. But rather than take another trade, let's just let price develop a little bit and see what it wants to do. Looks like it reclaimed that fair value gap, but let's make sure. Let's give it some time. Anyone new to the chat or just joined recently, this is a 30-second scalping model on Nasdaq. I sometimes do it S&P, but mostly I'm a Nasdaq trader, and it's a 30-second scalping model, as I mentioned. And the way it works is you trade with momentum. So we were bullish. We had been bullish for quite some time. And so what you look for is a sweep of the opposite direction. And then you look for, if you're bullish, you look for a new high to be made. Once that new high is made, then you look for a retracement of 30% into the manipulation leg, which is the leg that created the sweep of lows. I'll show you an example over here, one that we had before. So for instance, we had a high made here. So then we need to look for a low to be swept. Swing low was actually swept here. Then we waited for a high. Actually, I'm sorry, bad example. This is not a trade that it even traded back into. We'll take these. All right, so this was our previous high, which was then taken here. Then we were looking for a low to be swept, which you get a swing low. You have this low, lower low, higher low. So that swept there. Then we wait for the high to be taken. Once we got a new high, then we set up our trade to be taken at 30%. Oops. Just try to set that up here. So we just sweep the highs here, trade back down on this candle into the zone. We need to now buy up for 5.25 points, which it did. And that was a winning trade we took. I'll show you another example. We had another one happen just after that. Once this trade finished winning, it made a new high. So then we looked to see if there's a low to be swept, which there was. This low swept downwards. And then we just wait for a new high to be made. And then we do the exact same setup. New high was made. Wait to be taken in at 30%, and that's your trade. All right, now back to live candles. Okay, we just had a high swept. This fair value gap continue to provide resistance. Let's see. Don't like the formation of this candle with the high wick and the small candle body. That's generally going to be a bearish setup, but we'll wait and see how it develops. But it looks like potentially we're going to go lower. Okay, let's wait for the closure. They closed above, or actually inside, but right on the upper limit. Five seconds before this candle closes. Okay, let's see if we can get a break of these equal highs. Let's see where we are on the retracement. Okay, it's been retracing to 50%, and that's pretty much been the resistance. A lot of down wicks. It could potentially be moving higher. Let's just be patient. Let's see if price wants to push higher prior to sweeping lows. Let's set this up as if this was a trade. So if you're going long from 30% retracement, again, let's see if price wants to deliver higher prices prior towards sweeping these lows. Oops, let's go back so it's easier to see. All right, price did not want to pay higher prices before sweeping lows. I knew that was a risk going into that trade. That's why I just took one contract. But I would have liked to have seen price break these highs before. Sitting in the middle of this zone here at around 50% area doesn't give me a lot of comfort. It could go either direction, and since the stop loss is only 5 handles, and this area is roughly 30 handles, yeah, it's easy to get stopped out without price doing much. Not to mention, if you look at market structure, we're still bearish. Let's go ahead and remove this. It's not part of our setup. You can also take out the value gaps, which isn't relevant anymore. This one is, but we also have the new week open gap just below it. So that's most likely going to be the real confluence. Tell you what, I'm looking forward to next week. This has not been a good week for trading. For anyone just joining earlier, this stream is now on a little over 2 hours earlier. In the stream, you will see that there were 3 or 4 winning trades that were marked up prior to, and then we watched them unfold. But we'll continue taking setups for probably the next 20 minutes. I'll probably close it before the last 10 minutes of the session, or last 10 minutes of the hour. And then we'll resume Monday morning, 10 a.m. We're not looking for longs until we can get past this purple line here. Even then, that's not really setting up a long. We want to actually make a new high. So let's shift that over. We want this to be broken. Okay. That will be manipulation leg there. There we go. Here's the setup. 30% entry. Let's go in one contract still. This has not been a good week for us. We don't want to over leverage. Okay, tapped in. Now see how price wants to deliver. Let's go to break even. And there it is, price delivered. 5 points in a quarter, which covers the quarter point is worth $5. It covers all of the commission fees for entering and exiting a trade, which I believe is $2.50 or $2.60 or so. So it's a little bit more, but it does cover those fees. All right. Let me show that setup again, just to make sure everyone was able to see that and understand why I took that trade and why it was valid. Okay. So the first thing we needed was price was bearish. Price was moving down and taking out lows. So price didn't turn back bullish until we had a sweep of this high here with all of this momentum. But that still wasn't an entry. That was just sentiment. So then sentiment was bullish. What we needed was for low to be taken, which we got almost immediately right here. However, price continued going lower. That low was taken. This low was taken. You get the point. All the lows were taken pretty much. But then once a low is taken, the next step is you need a high taken. I'm sorry, not just a high taken. You need the high that started the whole process to be taken. So you need a new high, which was made in this candle right here. Once that happened, you then want to put a Fibonacci on the manipulation, which is from high to low. Let me remove some of these so it's easier to see. Okay. So from high to low, sorry, had it backwards. We're looking for a 30% retracement, 30%. Set your long, 30%, 5-point stop loss, 5-point plus the extra quarter for take profit. And then there's your limit order, and you just let it happen. Set limit orders, you just right click, create limit order, and then you can type in all the parameters if you want to. What I like to do is to first shift this around, get it where I want it. So when I right click, it's already where I want it to be. And so all I have to do is decide how many contracts do I want to take. Do I want to take 5 contracts or fewer or more? Once I have my contracts, then I just click the button, the limit order is set, and then you're just waiting for price to retrace into the limit order, activate, and then see how it develops. So now we can see once that delivered. Let's move this out of the way. Once we had a delivery, if we want another setup, we now need another low to be taken. So because we have high already, now we need a low to take. That would be here or here. So far, nothing's happened. So we're not in another trade. We're not even looking for another trade. If you're not subscribed, please consider doing so. Therefore, you get alerts for whenever I'm going to do a live stream, which could be once or twice per day. Therefore, you can follow along in my journey on Top Step funding, as well as just my trading journey, and we can build a community of traders. Okay, still do not have a low swept. Let's go to 15 seconds, see if anything else has come. All right, so this would have been that price delivery. Then we had a high made here, a low there, a low sweep, a new high. So actually this could have been an entry. Sorry. So this would be the manipulation. We had a new high created. We had a retrace back into the zone. 30%. Still hasn't stopped out yet, but we're halfway into profit. And since price is fractal, this strategy works on all time frames. It's just a 30-second gives enough entries per hour for my liking. 15-second gives even more entries. And obviously, in higher time frame will give fewer entries, but this strategy works on, as long as there's price action, this strategy works. Okay, anyone who wasn't in was able to get in another time if they wanted to. Price still hasn't delivered, so it's technically the same entry. See price starting to stutter and stall in this zone. Um, the only thing that could be an issue for this entry is this section right here. Oops. I really don't like to see a huge swing up and within the same candle, a closure at the bottom. That usually points towards a bearish candles following. And so that would have been the only reason why I may have hesitated to enter this. Okay, so anyone who joined and took that entry on the 15-second, that was not a winner. Again, I only point to this candle as being a bearish candle, one that I don't like to see in bullish momentum. Go back to the 30-second. It wasn't as bad on 30-second, but still it doesn't look good, or it didn't look good. Generally, you expect for half of a candle this size to be played into, and then you expect for it to move the opposite direction. So let's do it over here so you can see. 50% of the candle, almost 50%. A couple ticks away. Let's get rid of that. Let's move this out of the way. All right, we're sweeping loads now. If we sweep a high and then make a new low, we could be looking for a bearish setup. See if it creates a short-term high, which it did. Will the next candle take it out? We'll further move lower. Let me mark that up. Remove this. Okay. Now let's see what's next for price. until we get back here, we're still bearish. So this is all manipulation. It's just how high does it want to go before breaking down even lower. Don't need that anymore. The lower left at the 5-minute, you can see the 5-minute setup. Well, not setup, but the 5-minute chart, which shows lots and lots of wicks bouncing into this range. And every time it bounces out, we're approaching it again, which is down at 16,015. Yep. And since this area has been bullish area once reaching, I'm going to actually not mark this up as manipulation because I wouldn't be taking a short from this zone trying to get down here. It's also the last 15 minutes of the hour, last 15 minutes of the day. Okay, we're now back at that area where it likes to, where it has liked to bounce out of since 2 o'clock. The last 2 hours has just been might as well have been a bullish fair value gap. Every time it touches it, it springs for a few points bullish. Okay, we also have our new week opening gap. Wouldn't that be ironic if we come down and close exactly where we started the week? Move this line, it doesn't serve a purpose anymore. So now if we're bullish, we have highs up here. We had a low swept. So we can't look for entries until these highs are swept. I know we're getting close to the end, but since we're in such a low time frame, there still would be time for the trade to complete itself prior to needing to be out. I believe for top step is 410. All trades need to be closed. Let's remove this. Let's keep an eye on down here. We do have equal lows. We got a swing high here. We want to pay attention to as well. See what happens after this swing high. Do we race for these lows or do we continue higher for this high? Okay, that swing high is broken. Now the next move will determine what we do. All right, got to break down lower to the lower end of the new week opening gap. 5 seconds before closure. Let's see what this candle does. Close right in the middle of the zone. In the middle of the range, I mean. So this would be the range. See, 50% right there. Okay, continue to break down. So show manipulation here. Looking for retracing 30% and 5 points down. All right, looks like price is going to do one of those things that never works with this strategy. And I'll show you what it is. This kind of situation where you make lower lows and also make higher highs. So the range just gets larger and larger. And if it wants to continue to sweep highs and lows, it's hard to enter in on a scalping model with a 5-point stop loss. Glad we didn't enter that trade, but with this level of manipulation at the end of the week, on Friday afternoon, I think it's best that we not take another trade. We just pay attention for the next couple minutes and go off to enjoy our weekend. Okay, maybe I should put those lines back up. It's just too fun to look at this. Oh man, look at that. You cannot scalp this price action. This is a no-go. When you see this, sit on the sideline until you get something different. Okay, price wants to run. Let's see if price still wants that lunchtime high. 16.050. Okay, let's remove these lines. There you have it. The end of Friday trading. So I hope it was enjoyable. Hope you learned something, or at least didn't feel like you wasted your time. And we'll be back at it Monday morning, 10 a.m. Hope to see you there. Thanks for joining.